Hello, book lovers, and thanks for listening. I post new chapters every week. If you like my work, please remember to like and subscribe to help me build my channel. The Stillwater Girls by Minka Kent. Narrated by Jennifer Schafer. Chapter 22. Nicolette. Standing in front of the bathroom sink, I stare at a stranger's reflection, tracing my fingertips along the bags forming beneath her bloodshot eyes. If I didn't know this woman, I might feel sorry for her, but I've never been a fan of self-pity. Exhaustion paints my face in unflattering colors, but it's nothing a cold compress can't soothe, and a little concealer can't hide. I stayed up way too late last night, poring over photographs and recalling happier times, masochistically trying to figure out if I could have seen this coming and if I somehow chose to ignore it. Sleep came before I was able to make a determination. While Brant clearly knows who this girl is and has chosen to hide her photo from me, my mother always said it's dangerous to walk around making assumptions. But those eyes, those sea glass eyes that match Brant's fleck for fleck, I can't get them out of my head. Cupping a handful of lukewarm water between my palms, I rinse my face and pat my skin dry before heading downstairs for a cup of coffee. I've stayed home from Brant's work trips plenty of times over the course of our marriage, and for various reasons. But this particular instance feels different. The echoes in our home are a little more pronounced, the sound of my footsteps slightly louder, the howling of the wind more noticeable. All of it serves to remind me that it's just me out here, alone, next to these deep woods, and under this gray sky, on a road that's lucky to see any traffic besides our own on a typical day. Pulling a mug from the cupboard, I slip my thumb through the ceramic handle and shuffle to the built-in coffee station in the butler's pantry. Not in the mood for sweets, I take it black. Hello? A voice so meek I'm positive I'm imagining it floats through my home, nearly causing me to spill my drink. So I place it aside and angle my ear toward the next room. My breath suspends, and I brace myself against the soapstone pantry counter. Sometimes the wind howls so hard out here, it can sound like someone's at the door, but it's always nothing. No one comes here unless they have to, and I certainly can't blame them. We're impossible to find, hours from the city or any ounce of culture. When the weather's bleak, it's unbearably cold. When it's warm, we're surrounded by mosquitoes and cicadas, chirruping so loud you need earmuffs to sleep at night. My parents visit at scheduled increments, mostly birthdays or holidays, and Brant's brother used to come for dinner every so often, before their falling out several months ago. Holding my breath, I listen to the nothingness that fills my house, trying to decide if that hello I heard a moment ago was nothing more than a figment of my imagination. I shake my head and reach for my coffee. Why I would even assume that someone would randomly show up at my door at 7 a.m. unannounced is beyond me. Heading to the kitchen, I take a seat at the table and stare out the floor-to-ceiling window towards the sparse trees that surround our home. In the springtime, the woods surrounding Stillwater Hills are full of life and perfectly formed by Mother Nature herself. They serve as home to the most magnificent flora and fauna, primroses and monarchs in the spring, golden chanterelle mushrooms in the summer, and plums and persimmons in the fall. But in the winter, the forest is nothing more than a rotting, half-functioning wind block of the eyesore variety. Brant always said everything has to die to be reborn again, but I beg to differ. There are plenty of places on this earth with lush green everything always. Places where nothing dies because the sun refuses not to shine. Lifting my mug, I take a sip. Hello? A splash of black liquid sloshes over the edge of my cup when I place it aside. There's a knock next. followed by an undeniable "hello" this time. Steadying my breath, I stepped lightly towards the security system control center in the hallway, pressing the code and pulling up the camera views to check the outside of the house. The garage camera shows an empty driveway. The camera angled towards the backyard and the wraparound porch shows the same. Nothing and no one. Pressing the front porch option, I squint, studying the two dark masses standing in front of my door until they come into focus. Gasping, I clap a clammy hand over my chest. Taking a closer look at the security camera, I zoom in on the faces of the two figures. Girls. The image of the two young girls with hollowed eyes and gaunt faces, long, unkempt hair dripping down their shoulders, one blonde, one brunette, is as haunting as it is real. The blonde is taller, but not by much, and her arm is hooked over the smaller one's shoulders. The camera's focus isn't the best in this light, a little grainy and delayed by 2 seconds, but it doesn't take much to see they're both shivering. 3 raps echo through the house, sending my heart knocking in my chest, harder than before. This could be a setup. I've heard of dubious people feigning to be stranded motorists or pretending to be injured, all in an attempt to rob someone. There could be others hiding around the side of the house, out of sight of the cameras, well aware that I'd have to disarm the system in order to open the door, and that's when they'd strike. I try to assure myself that if anything happens, if these girls are simply lures and someone else tries to intrude, all I'd have to do is press a button on the keypad. The alarm will sound and the police will be here in less than 10 minutes. Brandt has a gun upstairs in a safe in his closet. It's just a handgun, small enough to hide in his palms. I've never used it before, but it's still a deterrent if it comes to that. "We need help," the voice from outside my door says. "Please." The temperature on the monitor's screen reads 23 degrees, well below freezing. I stare at the live footage, watching, paralyzed. Moments later, the smaller one presses her head against the other's shoulder, her face wincing as if she's in pain. The fair-haired girl knocks again, this time harder. Dragging in a heavy breath, I pad to the kitchen to grab my phone and dial 911. 911, what's your emergency? The dispatcher answers on the first ring. "Hi, yes, this is Nicolette Gideon," I say, injecting all the calm I can muster into my tone. 479 Orchid Drive. There are 2 young girls outside on my doorstep asking for help. They appear to be not well. Can you send someone right away, please? "Yes, Miss Gideon," she says, the faint sound of her keyboard clicking in the background. "Are they physically injured in any way?" I don't know. I haven't answered the door," I say, knowing full well I'm putting my spinelessness out there. "I just woke up a little while ago and heard them outside asking for help. I live just outside of town, miles from the nearest neighbor. It's so early, and this is so unusual, I guess I just wanted to be—" Justifying my cowardice isn't my finest moment. "Ma'am, it's fine. I'm sending someone out right now. We'll send medical too," she says. "Stay put and let me know if they leave, okay?" I will. Heading to the door, I glance out the peephole and see that they're still there. "I'll stay on the line until the responding officer arrives," she says. I clutch the phone against my chest, hands trembling so hard I almost drop it on the foyer floor. The girls haven't budged. They're not giving up, not leaving. Desperation breeds resilience. But then again, so can evil. From here, I get a better look at their clothes. Tattered, faded dresses with dirty hems protrude out from the bottom of their long brown coats, and their feet are covered in stained boots. I don't know any teenagers around here who'd be caught dead dressing like that. My hand clenches the doorknob, and every part of me wants to help them more than it wants to fear them. If Brant were here, he'd have opened the door by now. He's fearless like that. And on top of that, he's a people pleaser. He wants everyone to like him. He wants to be a hero, and there's no better way to validate your worth than by helping people. But that's neither here nor there. They're not here, the little one says. We should go. Checking my phone screen, I see it's only been 2 minutes. It'll be at least another 8 before the police arrive. Slipping my phone into the left breast pocket of my pajama top, I undo the locks on the door and give the door a gentle pull so as not to startle the girls. And then I try not to gasp when I take in the disturbing sight before me. The tiny eyes and skin and bone features and matted hair sticking out from pilling knit caps. These girls are almost otherworldly and definitely not from around here, at least not that I can surmise. The blonde one grips the dark-haired one tight, both of them trembling, though from fear or from cold I'm not sure. "Ha," she says, her pale blue eyes wide and round. "I'm sorry to bother you." Being face to face with them, I can't help but find their appearances distracting. The little one stares, unblinking, and I scan the length of her torn patchwork coat, which has been darned and repaired with floral printed fabric in several places. There's a hole in the toe of her left boot, and a bit of her woolen sock pokes through. Her hair, limp and heavy with natural oils, hangs about her shoulders, tapering to ratted ends that stop past her elbows. "We'll need help," the blonde says. I couldn't begin to guess her age if I tried. She's certainly much too small and shapeless to be an adult, but she's far from a child. Same with the other girl, though there's a sort of quiet, wide-eyed curiosity about her, like a sheltered child seeing everything for the first time. Moving back, I motion for them to step inside. Holding hands, they cross the threshold of the front door and stand with gaping eyes in the center of our 2-story foyer. "What happened to you?" I ask as gently as possible. "Are you hurt? Do you know where your parents are? Are they looking for you?" They look so young with their round, innocent eyes, and they haven't stopped shaking despite the 72 degrees my thermostat is set at. They remind me of abandoned baby bunnies, sad and sweet and destined to either thrive or die from shock. "The police are on the way," I say. "Come on in. Have a seat. Are you hungry? Thirsty?" I lock the door and head towards the kitchen, waving for them to follow. The girls stay several steps behind, but a moment later they stand in the doorway, glued at the hip, as I fill 2 glasses with water. "You can have a seat over there." I point to the table. "Are you hungry?" They say nothing, but their gaunt faces tell me all I need to know. Heading to the pantry, I retrieve a loaf of bread and a jar of peanut butter. From the fridge, I grab strawberry jelly and a bowl of rinsed seedless grapes. "They're sending an ambulance, too," I say, fixing their toast and plucking green grapes from their vine. "In case you need medical attention." The girls haven't said a single word since they stepped inside. They only stare at me with their careful, watchful gazes and clench their bony hands together as they shuffle to the table to take a seat. "Are you hurt?" I ask again, placing their plates in front of them. Their sunken eyes inspect the food, but they don't touch it, at least not at first. "It's okay," the older one whispers to the younger one. "You can eat it. She seems nice." Nothing about them leads me to believe they're related. The little one has dark, pointed features, and the bigger one has bright saffron blonde hair, crystalline blue, hooded eyes, a round face, and a spray of freckles over her nose. A lump forms in my throat when I think that I might be sitting across from 2 victims of child trafficking. Perhaps they escaped. Perhaps they've never known another decent human being, and that's why they're so uncertain of me. The faint wail of a police siren outside grows louder by the second. The little one is mid-bite when she stops and turns to the older one. "It's okay," I tell them, placing my palms up. "It's just the police. They're here to help." My words don't register, at least not on their heavy-lidded expressions. Their weary appearances lead me to believe they haven't slept in ages. Maybe they're out of it. Maybe they were drugged. Maybe they ran for days and days until they came across my house. Whatever happened, I'm sure the police will get to the bottom of it. Flashes of red and blue burst through my windows, and a swift rap at my door comes a few moments later. Lifting a finger, I smile at the girls. I'll be right back, okay? Heading to the door, I yank it open and find myself standing face to face with a female sheriff's deputy in head-to-toe khaki. Her hair is combed back into a low bun, and while the brown-gray of her hair hints at middle age, there isn't so much as a trace of smile lines on her skin. Removing her hat, she begins to speak, but I cut her off with, "They're in here." Glancing towards the driveway before closing the door behind her, I spot the ambulance pulling in and crawling to a stop. Just this way. I lead her to the kitchen where the girls are inhaling the remains of their peanut butter and jelly toast. Their 2 water glasses, which were filled to the top a moment ago, are now empty. All that remains are their untouched grapes. "Girls, this is Deputy," I glance at her name tag, "Deputy May. She's here to help you." The older girl freezes, still as a statue, but eyes live and alert. The younger one stares down at her lap. I have a feeling their story won't be for the faint of heart. "Hi, girls," Deputy May says in a voice as sweet as honey cakes. "Miss Gideon here gave us a call because she wanted us to make sure you're okay." The girls deposit their slow, watchful gazes in her direction, but their lips are sealed tight, as if they have no intention of speaking. "Can you tell me what happened? How you got here?" the deputy asks with a friendly smile. They say nothing. "Are either of you hurt?" she asks. I resist the urge to prompt them to say something. I'm not their mother. I'm simply the woman who answered the door and gave them food and water. They have no reason to do anything I tell them to do. The dark-haired one reaches for a grape, examining it between her fingers. "It's okay," the older one says. "You can eat it. We grew those one year. Remember? Ours were purple." The deputy and I exchange looks. The little one pops it into her mouth, chewing with intention, rolling it around on her tongue, and reaching for a second one when she's done. "I understand you might be scared right now," May says, her hands resting on her duty belt. "But we really want to help you, and we can't do that unless you tell us what happened." "What are your names?" I ask, hoping desperately to break the ice. Flattening my palm against my chest, I say, "I'm Nicolette." My eyes lock with the older one. I have every reason to believe she's not going to answer me, so I don't push her. "You can call me Nick if you'd like," I add with a sweet smile. The pause between us all lingers, and the sound of Deputy May drawing in a slow breath fills my ears. "Wren," the blonde girl says. "My name is Wren, and my sister's name is Sage." So they are sisters. Deputy May takes the chair across from them. "And how did you get here, girls?" "We walked," Wren says. "Can I take off my coat?" "Of course," I say. She shrugs out of her threadbare jacket, revealing a pale nightdress drenched in sweat and clinging to her thin frame. I take the jacket from her, draping it over the back of a chair. The overwhelming scent of stale must fills the air. "Where are you from?" the deputy asks. "Do you know your address?" Wren squints and then blinks, as if she doesn't understand the question. "What about your parents?" Deputy May tilts her head. "Are they looking for you?" Sage glances up at Wren, but Wren doesn't flinch. "No." Do you have parents?" May asks, thin brows raised. "We did," Wren says, gaze flicking towards her plate. For a moment, I'm convinced I'm dreaming because none of this seems real and none of it makes sense. But I take a seat beside the deputy and trust she knows what she's doing, that she knows how to ask the questions in a way to get them to answer. Ran, I need to use the outhouse, the little one whispers. Outhouse? May forces a hard breath through her nose as we exchange looks. I don't have an outhouse, I say with a pillow-soft apology, but I have a bathroom. It's like an outhouse, but with running water and lights. Rising, I add, I'll walk you there. It's just down the hall. Sage looks to Wren, and Wren tells her it's all right. A second later, I'm heading to the powder bath in the hall, with the little coffee-eyed darling in tow. Flicking on the light, I step out of the way. Only Sage doesn't enter. She stands, staring, her hands pressed against the doorframe. Have you ever used a bathroom like this before? I ask. She bites her bottom lip and shakes her head once, her eyes moving from the toilet to the faucet to the mirror and then to me. Moving to the powder room, I lift the lid and say, "This is where you relieve yourself." Pointing to the chrome lever on the back of the tank, I say, "You push this when you're done." I don't want to scare her, so I demonstrate, flushing a clean bowl of water and standing back as she watches it swirl around the white porcelain and disappear. When you're finished, you wash your hands here. I reach for the faucet handles, turning each one on and then off, and then I point to a white dispenser and the gray hand towel hanging on the bar to the left. There's your soap. You can dry your hands here when you're done. Thank you, she says, hands folded across her tiny waist. I step away and return to the kitchen, where Deputy May is walking away from the table, her hand pressed on her radio as she speaks into the mic. Wren stares ahead, a blank look on her face, and May points me towards a vacant hallway. "We are going to take them to Mercy General," she says when we're out of Wren's sight. "They'll get a full medical workup and we'll have a psych evaluate them. Child Protective Services is on their way as well." I'm not sure what I expected, but all this is happening so fast. One minute they're knocking at my door asking for help and shaking like scrawny little leaves. The next minute they're eating like they haven't eaten in years. And the fact that I had to show Sage how to use a modern-day bathroom adds a whole new level of peculiarity to this situation. "Can I go with them?" I ask. May raises her left brow. "I don't know them, but they're alone," I say. "They're scared. They should have someone who isn't in a uniform, someone who can stay with them, answer their questions, tell them everything's going to be okay." "Miss Gideon, I appreciate your concern, but please," I say, cutting her off. "I won't intervene. I'll stay out of your way. I think they need someone who's not on the clock. No offense. And right now, I'm all they have." May gives me a tight-lipped smile as if to appease me as she pauses. "All right, fine. If the girls want you there, you can be there. But you won't be privy to any of their medical data or any non-public information related to our investigation." I completely understand. I lift my right hand to my heart. A knock on the front door interrupts our conversation, followed by footsteps a moment later. I glance past her shoulder to find two male deputies trekking across my foyer, their heavy-booted footsteps echoing along with the squawk of their radios. "In here," May calls, hands moving to her duty belt. A deafening shriek fills my left ear, coming from the hallway near the powder room, and without pause I run toward the awful noise, only to find Sage slumped up against the wall, her hands cupping her ears and her eyes squeezed tight, wailing. The two deputies stand over her before glancing to May. Sage's sister squeezes between them to get to her, and the deputy motions for the men to step away, out of sight. Wren's lanky arms wrap around Sage, and she whispers something in her ear. A moment later the crying stops. though her chest rises and falls so fast I fear she might hyperventilate. Girls, girls, May says, lowering herself to their level. What's going on? Those are Deputies Alvarez and Thompson. They're here to help you. You have no reason to be scared of them, I promise. They're just here to try to trace your footprints. Maybe see if they can find something to help us figure out where you came from. The little one buries her face into Wren's lithe shoulder, and Wren holds her tight. She thought there was a man at our cabin. Her voice is shaky and she struggles to finish her thought, so May cuts them off. It's okay, one thing at a time. You don't have to be around Min if you don't want to. Once we get to the hospital, we'll request only female doctors and nurses. May turns, giving me a wordless look, as if to suggest this entire thing goes much deeper than either of us could have imagined. There are doctors? Wren asks, brows lifted. There are doctors at this hospital? Drying her tears on her sleeve, Sage glances up at her sister. Wren, maybe Evie is there. The deputy's hands rest at her hips. Who's Evie? Wren turns to her. Our other sister. May pinches the bridge of her nose. There are 3 of you. Wren nods. Evie was sick. Mama took her to town to see if a doctor could help her. That was months ago. They never came back. May's hands rest on her hips, and the 11s between her eyebrows deepen. The 4 of us bask in a soundless moment until someone calls May on the radio, and she walks into the next room as she responds. A moment later, she returns. We should go now, she says. The hospital's expecting us. I'm with them. I point to the girls and Deputy May once I arrive at the main desk at Mercy General. May nods, waving me over. The ride to town was silent in an eerie sort of way, yet kissed with the warm glow of a late winter sunrise filtering through barren landscapes. It seemed fitting, like a grim illustration that could be interpreted 20 different ways. Wren and Sage rode in the back of Deputy May's cruiser, and I followed in my SUV. From a few car lengths back, I watched as the 2 of them wrapped their arms around each other, occasionally staring back at me with their hollow eyes. I imagine they're terrified. A young nurse in pink scrubs with a tight blonde ponytail emerges from behind an automatic door, her wide gaze honing in on the girls. It's okay, she's a nurse, May says. She's come to take you back. Wren turns to me. Will you come with us? I glance at the deputy. If Deputy May says it's all right. May nods, and while I'm sure it isn't protocol, the situation is unique enough that I imagine she's willing to put her neck out there to ensure the girls have whatever they need to feel comfortable enough to cooperate. If you need me, I'll be here, she says to the nurse as she checks her phone. Going to wait for the social worker. Thought she'd be here by now. Rising, I follow the girls and the nurse down a stark white corridor and into the 3rd door on the right. The exam room is close quarters, but we all manage to fit. I'm Becca. The nurse removes the silver stethoscope from her neck and smiles a careful smile at Wren. Would you mind having a seat for me on the table? I just want to listen to your heart and get a quick blood pressure on you. The girls don't speak, don't move. It's okay, I tell them, my voice a gentle push. Nobody here will hurt you. The nurse glances at me before turning back to them and offering a nervous smile. I imagine she was briefed before we got here, but nothing could have prepared her for seeing these 2 in the flesh. I'll go first, Wren says to her sister, climbing onto the end of the table. The crumple of thin paper beneath her fills the small room, along with the trace of musky, unwashed hair. The nurse places her metal bell against the back of Wren's chest, instructing her to take 2 deep breaths, and then she places the blood pressure cuff around her arm, explaining every step of the way. When she's finished, she has Wren step on a scale so she can get her height and weight. Becca scribbles the numbers on her clipboard before setting it aside and turning her attention to Sage. Glancing at the paper, I spot number 95 and 62 inches scribbled in blue pen. Underweight, as if we needed a scale and a ruler to confirm that. Sage, are you ready? Becca asks, replacing the paper on the exam table with a clean pull. Sage hesitates before obliging, and the process is repeated. A quiet knock on the door precedes the entrance of a white-haired doctor with dark pink lips, striking hazel irises, and clunky silver earrings. She moves to the sink first, washing her hands with an overdone thoroughness before turning to offer the girls a grandmother-like smile. I'm Dr. Halifax, she says. You can call me Dr. Corrine if you'd like. It takes a second for me to realize another woman is standing behind her, with dark circles under her kind hazel eyes and bushy brown hair that suggests she skipped a shower to come straight here. She wears exhaustion like a second skin, but the laminated badge hanging from her neck identifies her as Sharon Grable, LISW. The hospital must have assigned them a social worker. Dr. Corrine grabs the nurse's paperwork and takes a seat on a rolling stool, scooting closer to the girls, and Sharon leans against the wall, keeping out of the way. This is Sharon, Dr. Corrine says, pointing behind her. She's here to help you. The social worker steps forward. We're all here to help you. Whatever happened, whatever you've been through, I want you to know you're safe here, and we're going to see to it that you have somewhere safe to go. Our sister, Wren says, her voice cracking from too much silence. Her name is Evie. Is she here? Deputy May mentioned you were looking for your mother and your sister, Sharon says. We're going to do everything in our power to find them, but we need to take things one step at a time. As soon as Dr. Corrine is finished, the police are going to ask you some questions that could help us find them. But if at any time you're feeling overwhelmed or you need to take a break, you let us know, okay? The girls nod, and Sharon moves back to the wall, her off-white sweater fading into the cream-colored walls. So, I understand you two were in the woods, the doctor says, crossing her legs and running her hand along the stethoscope that hangs over her shoulders. She smiles, the lines beside her pretty eyes crinkling. Can you tell me what you were doing there? The room is hushed as we wait for a response. Over the years, there have been all kinds of stories, mostly local lore, about the Stillwater Forest and the kinds of people who may or may not reside somewhere deep inside. It seemed like most residents laughed at the stories, but some took them so seriously they wouldn't step foot beyond the hiking trails and the little rusty children's park beside the seldom-used campground. Brant says it all started after someone's baby was taken from that park, and the rumors grew from there. Wren clears her throat, her shoulders almost slouched and her posture less intense, which I hope is a good sign. We had to leave our home, she says, swallowing, her eyes dancing between Sharon and the doctor. Mama took Evie to town because she was sick. Then a man came, and he wouldn't leave. He was going to take us, so we waited until he was asleep and we left. The doctor tries her best to keep an unfazed expression, but the veins in her neck pulse, and she has to look away. How long have you lived in the woods? Dr. Corrine asks once she's gathered herself. When can we leave? Wren ignores the doctor's question. We need to find our family. Sharon takes a step away from the wall, her palm raised. Girls, more than likely you'll be kept here tonight for observation. You'll see another doctor, and there'll be some tests. They just need to make sure you're healthy before they can release you. Wren slides down from the table. No. She reaches for Sage, whose dark brows are angled inward, and takes her by the hand. You said you were here to help us, but you're forcing us to stay here. Wren's words are rushed as she pulls her sister to the door. Dr. Corrine rises, but Sharon places a gentle grip on the doctor's shoulders. A moment later, the girls run out the exam room door, disappearing down the hall. Up until now, it was easy to lose myself in the moment, to become a fly on the wall, a passive observer, quietly trying to wrap my head around how this could have happened. But I can't let them get away. They won't survive out there on their own. They need someone like me, someone they can trust. Then again, if they survived in the wilderness, maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. Wren, Sage, I call as I trail behind them. Please wait. The girls squeeze between nurses and crash carts and portable computer stations and stop when they reach a door at the end of a hall that can only be accessed with a bar-coded badge. When they turn to face me, they're breathless, with eyes like frightened wild animals that have been cornered. I keep my distance, placing my palms up. It's okay. I promise you're safe here. Wren's face is pinched, like she doubts me. You said we'd be safe. You didn't say we'd be kept here against our will. Pulling in a deep breath, I nod. I can't begin to relate to how they're feeling, but I can understand it, respect it. I know this is confusing to you, I say, but you need to trust that these people have your best interests in mind. They want to make sure you're healthy and that you're feeling well enough to answer the questions the police are going to ask so they can find your family. And once we get through that, they'll find you a place to stay. A place to stay? Sage asks. It's not like we can go home. He'll find us there, and he'll probably kill us after what we did, Wren adds. My heart gallops as I try to piece this together. If someone wants to hurt you, he won't hurt you if you're here. There are guards here, and doctors and nurses, locks on every door, cameras. It sounds like I'm describing a prison, though I'm not even sure if these girls know what that is if they've never left the confines of their little house in the woods until now. The girl's silence almost makes me lose hope, but then Wren whispers into Sage's ear before turning to me. Only one night? Wren asks. Yes, and then we're going to find you a place to stay, I say, hoping I'm not overstepping my boundaries. I don't know what the exact protocol is here. Where? Wren asks. There are foster homes, places that volunteer to take in young people who need help, I say. How old are you? I'm 19, Wren says. Sage is 18. I begin to say something, but I stop myself from expressing an ounce of disbelief at their ages. I thought they were young teenagers at the most, maybe 14 or 15. I didn't know they were adults. Wincing, I massage my lips together, contemplating whether or not I should say something. It isn't my job to let them know that they're too old to be placed in a foster home. And even if the state makes an exception for Sage, more than likely they'll be separated and Wren will be on her own. With no help or resources, there's a chance she would wind up in a homeless shelter somewhere. Everything okay? I turn to find Sharon standing halfway down the hall, just past the exam room. You ready to go back? I ask the girls. They take each other's hand and start walking back, and I follow, a wild hair of an idea filling my mind. I'm going to take them in. Then they won't have to be separated. They won't have to meet yet another stranger or spend night after night sleeping on cots in youth and women's shelters. After the trauma they've been through and the uphill battle they're facing, this is the best solution for them. I wouldn't be able to sleep at night if I turned my back on them. I'm happy to open my home to these sweet girls, even if the timing isn't exactly convenient given the current questionable state of my marriage. Heading back into the room, I make a mental note to call Brent about this later. I can't imagine he'll be upset with me for doing the right thing. And if he is, it's the least of my concerns. End of chapter 22.